Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. In today's top story, we've got Justin Trudeau's Minister of Families and Communities, Jenna Sudds, who gets absolutely grilled by reporters over the $10 a day childcare. Basically, you've got not-for-profit and for-profit daycares, and the Liberals favor the not-for-profit ones, and they're all maxed out. The waiting list is 5 or 6 years long, so most Canadians can't get into that $10 a day childcare, which is not fair to Canadians because we're all paying taxes. Jenna Sudds gets grilled on this, and afterwards I show an example of a local daycare here in this town where I live and break down all the numbers. Let's jump into it. Now, how this program works is 70% of the daycares have to be non-profit, and only 30% can be for-profit. And so she's questioned on this because they won't open up more slots for this, and getting into those non-profit daycares is a really hard thing to do. I got an example here I'll show you guys afterwards, but just check this. The reporter absolutely rips her on it.
Hi, Minister Sudds. Mia Rabson from the Canadian Press. I'm just wondering if you could update us on the status of your sort of own deliberation on Ontario's request to lift the for-profit limits. I know that was something you were supposed to talk with Todd Smith about, and then he resigned. Is that caused any delay in that, and what's the status of your consideration on that?
Well, as I shared previously, prior to him resigning, the only conversation that I was interested in having with the province was with respect to moving forward with a sustainable funding model for our childcare operators here in Ontario. Since that time, we have seen the province announce that funding formula, which will come into place on January 1st. Obviously, there's been a change in minister at the provincial level here in Ontario.
So she's just doing a word salad here, but they're asking in Ontario, why can't you lift that restriction and allow more for-profit daycares to allow more people to get $10 a day childcare? The reason for that, which I'll show you after she gets ripped here by the reporter, is because for-profit daycares cost more, which means the Liberals have to pay more to those daycares, where non-profit are a lot cheaper. And
I look forward to engaging in dialogue with Minister Dunlop, obviously as she gets into the role and gets fully briefed.
Does that mean you're rejecting the request from Ontario to lift the limits on for-profit spaces?
My job as we roll out...
Before we go forward, just look at this reaction.
The limits on for-profit spaces?
That's the looking to the side, as in, I got no answer for this. I'm just going to look and stall and just look. She looks at her and then she looks away again. This is someone who's not comfortable with this question. She doesn't want to answer this question. She can't answer this honestly.
My job as we roll out this National Childcare Program is to ensure that the highest quality, accessible, inclusive, and affordable spots are created. As we move forward with all of our agreements with provinces and territories, we have made the decision to ensure that this is a public system predominantly favoring non-for-profit spaces. So I am always open to conversation with my ministerial colleagues across the country, and I look forward to having the opportunity to speak with Minister Dunlop.
But you didn't answer the question. Are you rejecting that request, or are you still considering it?
I have not had the opportunity yet to meet with Minister Dunlop.
This fake smile.
Again, on the issue of for-profit and not-for-profit funding. In Nova Scotia, certainly outside of Halifax, because for-profit daycares, they're small business operators, and they're women primarily who run small businesses, and they've found that they have not been able to be approved to create new spaces and expand their businesses because of provisions in the funding formula with the federal government that say that nonprofits have to be prioritized. But in most of these towns, the nonprofits don't exist.
Mm-hmm. This is a great follow-up from a different reporter. I like that he brought this up because there's places across Canada, mostly rural, like you said, in the Maritimes, where there aren't any daycares that are not for profit. There's always for-profit daycares, and people need to use these, and the Liberals don't care about that. They have their little program here that they want to run that isn't fair to Canadians across Canada, and this guy's calling her on it.
Oh, are you willing to make changes to the formula to allow, small to for-profit daycares to receive funding under the Canada-Nova Scotia Agreement?
Sure, I appreciate the question. Nova Scotia is faring quite well when it comes to rolling out the childcare program here in this province. They made a commitment to create 9,500 non-for-profit spaces over the 5 years of the agreement. They are at over 5,000 of those spaces already announced. And most recently, we're able to submit their 3-year action plan, which is a requirement of our funding agreement, which lays forward the plan of how they are going to create those 9,500 spaces out to the end of the agreement. And so they've been able to do so. They have demonstrated that they are committed to the agreement, committed to creating the spaces, and committed to getting to $10 a day by 2026.
Yeah, but if you're in Antigonish and there isn't a nonprofit creating spaces, if you're in Sherbrooke, if you're in all these places where nonprofits don't exist to create the daycare spaces, but there are small business people, and they're all the ones I've spoken to are female small business people and entrepreneurs.
She just keeps putting these fake smiles, like, She does it the whole time.
Entrepreneurs who aren't able to provide a service that the community needs. Like, are you going to allow for that? And if not, why not? What's wrong with small business owners running daycares?
Well, I would first point out that obviously those that were already functioning, that were already providing amazing service here in the province, continue to do so and are part of the program. They were by no means excluded. But having said that, as I just mentioned, Nova Scotia is required to move forward and to present to us a 3-year action plan, which they have done. And in doing so, needs to ensure in that plan that they demonstrate the ability to provide spaces throughout the province, including rural, including francophone, including serving children with diverse needs. That's what the action plan calls for: accessibility, inclusivity, and getting to $10 a day by 2026. And so, if the province has already demonstrated their ability to meet those targets and to move forward, and I look forward to continuing that work with them.
Ugh, phony baloney answer. I mean, this whole program's stupid. Every Canadian who has a kid should be able to have access to $10 a day childcare. Otherwise, why have the program? Just get rid of it and have everyone make more money, keep more money to pay for your own daycare. Now, if we look at an example here, this is a not-for-profit daycare. Locally where I live, it took a little bit of finding. There was one in town, and they actually have their fee schedule right on the website here, which is amazing. So basically what we're looking at here, so if they're a toddler, like super young, or at 3 years of age and older, you can see the different rates here. So basically $51.50 for a daily rate, or $36.30. But then after the program kicks in, the program pays for $41 or pays for $26. And this is a daily rate, so the parent pays $10. And if you're using a daycare that is a for-profit daycare, these rates are probably looking pretty low. Well, I mean, if you look at here, they have a full-time rate as well, $700. If you do the math, it's like $726 or something. You get a little bit of discount if you do the full-time 5 days per week. The parent pays $200. So if you compare this to a daycare, I'm sure these numbers vary across Canada, but I'm sure this number is like double this if it's a for-profit daycare, because it's a business. And this is a not-for-profit business, hence it's cheaper. That's why the Liberals are focusing on this, but it doesn't make it fair for Canadians. And the wait lists are so long, it's like 5 years long, that by the time people get in, they don't need it anymore because their kid is too old. So the whole thing is absolutely failed and broken, just like every other Trudeau Liberal policy. Next up, we've got a horror story here where a woman rents a house and finds out it's completely moldy, and now she's paying to rent the house, but the landlord won't pay for anything, including moving her stuff out, getting a different place. She's got young kids.
A Cambridge mother says she is out of options. Not long after moving into a rental home, she found black mold throughout it. Now she says work to fix it is at a standstill. In the meantime, she's not able to live in the home where she's paying rent and is worried about the health of her kids. CTV's Heather Centerin has the story.
From the garage,
this is all mold,
to the dishwasher, an environmental consultant's report flagged at least 5 types of mold in this Cambridge home.
Some of it is airborne and some of it is surface, and the airborne ones are extremely toxic to humans. Living room floor.
Lindsay McCarthy moved her family's belongings into the rented home 6 months ago, but they haven't been able to live in it. One of her kids having an especially hard time.
She can't be in the house for more than a couple of minutes without her tongue starting to swell up and the back of her throat getting itchy and just feeling unwell. I'm immune compromised as well, and just from the time that I was here painting for the couple of weeks in February, I ended up getting extremely sick.
She's still paying rent for a home she can't live in.
The landlord seemed like he wanted to help us, but then once he started to see the costs of like relocating us and storing all of our belongings and actually like getting us out of the house so that the mold could be remediated, then he backed off and wasn't helping us at all.
McCarthy says her landlord has since hired a property management team.
I'm so upset. I honestly, I don't know how this man sleeps at night.
She says remediation teams were supposed to help twice, but were canceled. Now the landlord-tenant board will look at her case, but not until October. In a statement to CTV News, the management team said, in part, we take any concerns related to mold very seriously, and this case is currently under review by the landlord and tenant board. We are diligently working to resolve the issue and are hopeful for the tenants' cooperation.
My hope is that immediately he does the right thing and comes in and starts the remediation work and the repairs, that he relocates us to a proper place while that's being done, including the pets.
A tenant advocate says she's heard of similar cases in Waterloo Region.
That's why these landlords are getting away with it. It's because the market is so strained and there's nowhere else to go.
She believes more bylaws should be put in place to protect tenants.
Landlord licensing would be useful as well, so that this person cannot continue to let this house or rent this house to other people. We should have a registry of bad landlords.
This is a crappy story, and like that last woman said, there should be a registry of bad landlords. This owner should be fined. The landlord and tenant board, that whole situation needs to be resolved much quicker, whether they need to hire more people or whatever. You can't have people paying for rent and not being able to stay in a place. But really, this just comes down to way too many people being in Canada, and people are digging backyard places to live, like I showed in the previous video, or they're just not fixing major mold problems. I mean, what if this leads to, cancer or some disease like that? Then what? Like major lawsuits? Looking at the comments here, we got, so stop paying them seems simple enough to me. I wonder if she gave prepaid checks and that's why the landlord keeps cashing those. Either way, you would just cancel the checks, move out, and then sue the guy. The mold didn't grow overnight. It was there when she signed the lease. Didn't she inspect the property? The thing about this is they might have had it all sprayed with some sort of chemical or whatever and hid the mold. She moved in and then it started growing again. That's likely what probably happened. If I were a betting man, should be jail time. The government is turning into this nation of slums, all in the name of everyone having a roof. When it comes down to this story and all the other ones, there's two problems. The landlord-tenant board is just way too slow. They need more people or whatever to deal with these problems. Also, there's too many people coming to Canada with not enough houses. We got this story here. This is something a little bit different than just politics, but I thought it was really interesting. There's some old sailing vessels that got covered in sand years ago, and now with some recent storms, they're becoming unveiled to the world.
Finally for us tonight, a look at history once hidden by sand. Lost sailing vessels along the shoreline of a small Nova Scotia community have been unearthed by erosion. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth takes us on a trip back in time.
On the shores of the Avon River, 80 kilometers northwest of Halifax, Mother Nature has uncovered rich layers of 19th century maritime history.
3 ships that are buried here in the sand.
88-year-old Wilfred Ogilvie says about 100 years ago, 3 wooden ships were tied up here, eventually left to rot. One of the vessels, a 3-masted sailing ship called the Hamburg, was built across the river in Hantsport, Nova Scotia. She had a towering hull, looming large on this beach.
Well, she was 200 feet long and 40 feet wide.
All 3 ships, the Hamburg included, caught fire in 1936.
That's all that's left buried in the sand here is just from the water line down.
Over the decades, silt and sand mixed with the ebb and flow of the tides buried these ships. Then, after recent flooding, the sand washed away and the Hamburg slowly reappeared. Her hull is now visible for all to see. Pieces of other ships are also popping up along the beach.
Those old barges are getting close to 200 years old, because they were built in early 1800s.
This is more than just an uncovered historic treasure. It's a link to a long ago time when this area in Nova Scotia was known for being a prosperous shipbuilding community.
Nova Scotia was a leader in shipping in the 1800s, building the boats, merchandising the boats.
They sailed all over the world, hauling cargo to and from faraway places.
They'd take wood or something else from here, and then coming back, they'd get a load of something over there to bring back.
The Hamburg re-emerging from the sand is like revisiting a forgotten era.
It was a busy little spot here way back years ago.
It allows visitors to be transported back to the time of wooden sailboats, when the towns along this river rode the wave of the shipbuilding boom of the 19th century.
This is pretty crazy. It's cool. There's history just popping up out of the sand. The question going forward now, Justin Trudeau's got all these programs, the dental care, the $10 a day child care, the National School Food Program, the little pharmacare plan. How many of these are Pierre Poilievre going to cut? Is he going to cut all of them and just reduce our taxes, bring down inflation? Is he going to, keep small elements of some of them? I have a feeling he's going to wipe all of them clean, bring down inflation, and make life better for Canadians, but time will tell.